right now, but we can enunciate and share in this moment.
JD will fix it for you. He's our hero.
Lifesaver. Before I get started with these ladies, I do want to just acknowledge a theme that we saw. A family, a connection. There was something about, there were, we saw themes of family, of connection, but we also saw themes of disconnection, right? There was a separation in some of these films. I'll acknowledge our last time going through and gentlemen going back to visit grandma in China after not being there for 13 years. A story that's very common for folks in America, right? This is a melting pot in itself, and oftentimes we'll go around and say, where are you from? And the answer is never expected to be Boston. It's usually, where's your family from? Where historically are you coming to the country together from? And in that one we saw a theme about time, and how precious time is, time with our loved ones, and how sometimes that time is fleeting. And then a wonderful piece with Grace that took time to film it, because we saw the little Grace as a little one, and then when she was 13 years old. And it could be very easy to highlight what they didn't have, what was missing. But really what I got from that piece was just family, joy, love, like through all trials and tribulations, they really kind of stuck together. And that ongoing theme of not wanting to lose dad, but dad making that promise kind of to be there for his children. And we saw similar themes with the stories for the ladies that we have on stage here. I'd love to ask you, in a time where history seems like it's being erased in many ways and in many times, you open with archival pieces, right? We're looking back at pictures, some videos. What was it like for you to find, gather, and put those things together? And being that it's from your own family, how did that personally resonate with you?
Thank you, and thank you for selecting the film. It's really lovely to be all the way from London, two of us. London shorts get out, of course. As you must I had never been to Guyana, and that was kind of the theme of my story, really. I was trying to kind of understand my heritage, my Guyanese heritage. You know, I saw myself as a London girl, I said that on the film, but I suddenly realised actually my heritage is from Guyana. My dad had passed, I was trying to remember things my dad had told me, and then going to Guyana and trying to discover the things that he told me about. Some of the things that he hadn't told me and that I had to imagine. So it was really great putting it together actually, but then I had to ask my brothers and sisters if I could use all the photos of them as children, but they didn't mind at all. The thing that was kind of amazing was getting that archive footage, because it was from 1948 when this one guy went around Guyana with a Super 16 camera, and I was just Googling archive footage from Guyana, and it turns out that the Penn Museum had it all, and they let me just have it, they let me use it, which is amazing. So it was a joyous experience for me to make the film, and it's kind of reconnected my love of Guyana that I didn't know I had, so I'm trying to get Guyanese citizenship now. It's amazing, it's like with you know, going back and you realise that connection's there, that sense of, gosh, I felt like a part of me was there when I went there, because I'd never been before, so it was amazing.
Thank you for that, that's lovely. And shout out to you for looking for that citizenship. It's not bad to have dual citizenship right now. Inspiring all of us, right? Cândida, I will say I'm Cape Verdean myself, born in America. My two oldest siblings were born in Cape Verde, and there is that like, I'm Cape Verdean, but I'm American. When I go there, sometimes I wasn't Cape Verdean enough. When I'm here, I'm never American enough. What was it for you being born here, being raised in New Bedford, a predominant Cape Verdean community, yes, but still in the States? What was it that motivated you to go into this research and kind of put this work together, and the focus around music? How did that personally connect for you?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Okay, so in terms of the music, I've been singing all my life, but I remember the first song that I learned how to sing, which is actually in the film, is Chappelle Baja. And I remember that. I was like maybe 5, 6 years old when I heard that song. So Cape Verde music has always been part of who I am. And so yes, thankfully being from New Bedford and being raised in New Bedford, I've always had the culture. And then, as I mentioned in the film, there was a piece, that disconnection, right? So I moved away and I lost some of the language and didn't speak it as well when I went back. But then, when I went back to school and started listening, so I had been singing all my life and doing jazz and doing R&B. Of course, at home, my stepmother was from Brava, so of course I listened to people like Bana and different people in the house. So I always had it in me. But when I went back to school and rediscovered people like Horace Silver, and then as I started, like, wait a minute, there's Creole music in me, and I started going back and listening to like people like Cezanne here, and it's like, wait a minute. And plus I was doing, not only was I doing jazz, but I was also doing world music. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm learning about world music and all these other places, but there's world music inside of me already. And so that was back in 2000, as I said. So that kind of started I started all the research that I started doing when I was in school at that point was all around Cândida music. I got to interview some of the artists not in Cândida at the time, but in the U.S. Who had never been to Cândida. Some of them had never been to Cândida, but they were keeping the music alive. So I got to feel this almost a reversal of that from these musicians who had never been to Cândida. And so then, I'm graduating, I got my CD, and I'm doing all these other things, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's just so much more to who we are, to who I am musically. And I just felt like, okay, I'm going to go back to school. So that's when I went back to get my master's in 2015. And I just felt like there's so much to us. There's so much to me that it's great to have that from here. But like you said, right? It's like you go there and you feel a different sense of home, right? You go there and, as soon as you step foot on that land, you know that you're coming home. And so for me, so all of it with music, those threads started to just come together. And if I didn't know it before, I knew that music for Cândidianos is something that's so ingrained in us, and it's part of every single thing that we do, whether it's political, whether it's historical, whether it's identity, whether it's sports, whether it's whatever it is, music is sort of that thread that connects it all.
I love that, thank you. And also when you were going to do that batuque, it was just innately in you to just start doing a little. It's very true. Music is powerful and helps to connect communities and go cross-culturally. We heard bits about that too at the end. I want to ask you another question, and you alluded to it earlier. There was a theme and an emphasis on, like, squishing my brain for what my dad had taught me, and then also the imagining what he didn't. What did that mean for you? And then to come to this point, when you went to Guyana, how did that kind of connect? Because maybe there was a piece that you had to imagine, but then you also had to experience. So what was that like when you were putting the films together?
It was really interesting because I didn't really put the film together until I got back. When I was going to Guyana, my daughter was coming with me. There's a picture of us sitting in the Essex River. My husband, who's an award-winning cinematographer, couldn't be there for the whole thing, so he came a bit later. And the day before I left, I read an American report of travel advice on going to Guyana. Why I read an American one, I don't know, because should have read the English one. And it said, basically, you'll be murdered before you leave the airport. And I was just like, what am I taking my child to? You know, I had this vision of Guyana, and I thought, well, it's just going to be awful. And it was the most amazing experience. So I kind of went to learn things that I could tell my siblings. None of us had ever been. Sort of thinking I'll try and find the house my dad was born in, just seeing what I could find out. And then it kind of hit me when I was there. And I kind of filmed things like I had a camcorder, and I took photographs and I recorded things on my phone. But it was when I got back that the words came to me. That whole thing, I scoured my memory. So it kind of was like things were trickling back while I was there. But it's when I got home, sitting in dreary old London, the realization of what I had discovered about myself and my dad and my siblings really, really hit me. And then I had to try and, no, I didn't have to try and put, because it all went beautifully, I had to put the words that came to me, put the images to the words. So I kind of did it that way, which is not usually how we make films at all, but I sort of did it backwards, and I thought to myself often, so I wish the words had come to me when I was there, because I'd filmed a whole lot more and I'd taken more pictures. But actually, I just enjoyed being there. And I don't know if you found this, Cândida, but there was this moment when I was in a boat going down the Essequibo River, and this incredible, overwhelming sense of belonging hit me. And I thought, this is home. And my dad never went up the Essequibo River, so it wasn't that at all. You know, he didn't really go much outside of Georgetown, but it just kind of hit me, this thing of actually this is home. And so it became hugely significant to then document it for more than just my siblings, because you know there's that Sankofa thing, that's that African term that you don't know where you're going until you identify where you've been, so or where you're from, and so that was really important to me. I don't know if I answered your question.
And I appreciate you showing us that beautiful, beautiful image of the waterfall coming down and kind of closing out that gap. I believe I heard your dad talked about it, heard stories of it, but he himself had never got to visit. So that really felt like it closed the loop.
It really was. It was such a thing of trying to find this waterfall, and it's such an important waterfall in Guyana. And I just thought, oh, it'll be like 20-minute little journey. But it was like a 2-hour flight in the smallest plane. I was terrified. I mean, I was just, they weighed you before you got on the plane and made you sit in certain places according to your weight. But gosh, it was amazing. It was so worth it. It was absolutely stunning. And I sort of felt like my dad's presence when I was there. Like he'd be like so proud, like you came here, you saw it, and you filmed it. Well, I think he filmed it, I didn't.
In both stories, we see the family piece, but also giving us bits of history. And I'll say, being Cape Verdean and my family's all from Fogo, I never knew we had a concentration camp in Tarafa. And I did notice that it closed in 1974. For you all that might not know, Cabo Verde gained its independence in 1975. So it makes sense that it was around that time. And maybe a week ago, I would have been like, I love the map and what Cabo Verde is, but Cabo Verde in the World Cup, a lot of people have seen. And I'm now starting to see where we are. But can you speak a little bit, Cândida, about the historical piece that you're bringing in? And we know the focus around music, and like that was lovely to bring us through the journey with music, but that historical piece that comes into it, what was that like for you in researching and learning for that for yourself?
Well, I think for me, we don't always hear about that stuff, right? People just don't talk about it. And so to go and see, go to the concentration camp, or go to some of the other places, some of the other cities that are maybe less developed, but all of that. It just gives you a whole different perspective. And it helps me to understand, how resilient the people we really are. And that we do have the ability to make something out of nothing. And our history continues to show us that. And just like you said, until you go back and you see, you don't always understand what the path is to go forward. And I'm just feel so privileged to be able to have done that, because so many of us didn't, and so many of us won't. And so I just can't even put into words what all of that has meant and continues to mean every time I go back and find out something different. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. So the one thing I say to folks who have never been to the country of wherever your roots are, you have to go. You have to go, even if it's just once. Because you don't really understand that pull until you get there.
I will allow audience a moment for questions. So as you think of them, I also just want to bring in another piece. You always would like to go back to see where you're coming from and what you got, but there's also something about what you give back when you do, right? Like we're also bringing things back to our countries. A lot of people come to America to work, to make money, to send back home, to send things back home for the family that's still there. So it's also interesting to see the influence that comes, and then all the things that you get back as well. Do we have any questions from any of our audience members?
It's different, or very different here than when you went back home.
Yes. Well, I think that there are certain things that developed in COVID differently than developed in the United States. Music, for example, right? There were certain things that we didn't get, even though there was this connection of the music, there were still pieces of it that we didn't get maybe right away. So there's this, there's this Cape Verdean culture, and then there's Cape Verdean American culture, and that's kind of been interesting to see how sometimes there's a diversion because of time and space. I have a book that talks about the Cabo Verde United States musical connection and legacy. And there is a 40-year span from like the 1920s or so to the 1960s, where there wasn't a whole lot of immigration from Cabo Verde to the United States because the borders were closed, right? So there wasn't as much back and forth in terms of information, right? So there was, you couldn't help, right, the development, you couldn't help but the development to go in two different ways, because now you're not, this connection, you lose that connection, right? So then when the borders opens up, now you got people coming back in and bringing some of the stuff that we didn't know about. So I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Thank you.
I can't remember which one of you spoke, but one of you were talking about when you went back, you didn't feel, let's say if it was Cape Verdean, you didn't feel Cape Verdean enough, and when you were here, you didn't feel as American enough. So my question is, being in that, because I actually can relate, do you have a sense of belonging, or do you feel like you don't belong anywhere, or do you feel like you belong somewhere here, somewhere there? Because I feel like I really struggle with that on a day-to-day basis, which one, am I? Or is it okay to be both?
I'm going to ask both of you to answer that.
I think it's okay to both. I mean, I really see myself as a Londoner. I see myself as more of a Londoner than a British person, but I love my Guyanese heritage and my Guyanese identity. And I want to embrace that as much as I can. And the continuation of that, I don't know if you've done this, if anybody here has done this, but I did my DNA to try and establish where in Africa my forebears would have been stolen from. So I now know that that's Ghana. So I have this interest now to continue my journey to Ghana. And, you know, we'll see where that goes. I don't know whether I'll feel that I'm Ghanaian or Guyanese or British, but to me, I'm a Londoner who embraces her Guyanese heritage.
I think for me, I feel it's opposite for me. Like, yes, I am an American, but I feel like how have I put this? I'm American by birth, but I'm Cape Verdean by blood. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't know if that makes any sense, but in terms of belonging, when I go to Cape Verde, I feel like that's where I belong. I feel much more, it's weird to say, but I feel much more connected and accepted in Cape Verde in some ways. Not always, but in most ways. And it's here that I feel more of that, like a Creole. You could talk Creole, you're not Creole, you don't speak the language right, or whatever, or you weren't born there, or whatever it is. So it's here more that I get that, fake, you're fake Freudian or something. But I didn't feel that in coffee. So.
Yes, we'll take one more question.
Do you perform in the Boston area at all?
I have, it's been a while, but I have.
And is there a story behind the outfit you're wearing? It's beautiful.
No, there's no story. I ordered it from Astro, which is no story. It's just I just thought it was really beautiful,
Yeah.
and it's represents women and African women, and on a day like Juneteenth, I just wanted to represent that. I don't know.
Also sounds like you need to put a show on very soon. Do we have one last question from the audience? Yes.
How many times have you been to Cape?
Sure.
Hello, Miss Leslie. I have now been to Cape Verde 7 times. My last visit was just a couple months ago. I just got back. I had the honor of, I was there for 2.5 weeks, and I had the honor of performing for the Atlantic Music Expo and doing a week-long artist in residency at the Cesaria Academia. And so, it was an amazing, so that was my 7th time, and I have a song, I'm just gonna say this, I have a song called Cabo Verde Dia that you heard in the film, and that was one of the songs that I get to sing in Cabo Verde for the Atlantic Music Expo, and because it drew people from all over the world, I was able to say to all the Cape Verdeans, no matter where they are, tudo espalhado no mundo, everybody who is, spread out in the world, that one day, if you have not been to Cape Verde, you got to come. You got to make it.
Thank you. And I have one last question for these ladies. What's next in your journey? You might have alluded to some of it, but do you feel like you've closed the chapter? You feel content? You've shared your story? Or is there more?
So we've just made another film. Nothing. It's a narrative, something like this. We've got a feature-length documentary, which is about 6 women who migrated to Britain after World War II. That's fabulous, done really, really well. I'm kind of really, I don't know if any of you remember, because my film was on first, there's a picture of my dad in a full Scottish kilt.
Yes.
I want to investigate that. I don't know what that's about. He did live in Scotland for a while, so I want to investigate that, and also my Ghanaian roots as well. So to me, this is the first part of me really, really embracing my heritage, particularly on my dad's side. So, but then we're always making films, so there's more films.
Thank you. This is a time where Boston loves the Scottish. And they're everywhere. They have the game kilts all around, if you haven't seen. And England was here and won their World Cup game in Boston. So very timely that you're here. Cândida, what about you?
So I can't speak to the film piece of it, except that I want to, we're hoping, so Rosalind Negron, who could not be here with us tonight, who was the director, I just want to say a little bit about her and why she did this. So she was one of my professors at UMass Boston, and she's also a budding so she's an amazing professor, but she also is sort of a budding filmmaker, and had delved into doing other sort of films about culture, but was really intrigued by my story and the fact that I was going back and trying to dig into my heritage. So she was the one who encouraged me to. She asked if she could send somebody with me to put out my last week was there. She asked if it was okay. So she said for her to send somebody. So I don't know what her thoughts are in terms of what we're going to do with the film going forward, except that we are working on curriculum. So we're working on sort of this sort of an educational piece of it. We've actually showed it at the Boston Day and Evening Academy, and we've shown it in New Bedford, and we're working with the Bridgewater State University there's a virtual museum called Cabo Verde e a Música, which is a virtual museum that we're trying to do more things with, possibly the film. But I'm always doing stuff. I'm always trying to I'm always performing and talking to people about my culture, so.
Thank you. And an opportunity for you, if anybody doesn't know, Boston Public Schools is actually reopening the Frederick Elementary School. It was formerly the Lilla G. Frederick Middle School. It's actually going to be the first Cape Verdean dual language school in the world. So there might be opportunity to connect there. I want to say thank you to our audience members. Thank you for joining us. What a wonderful set of films to watch on Juneteenth. And what a wonderful opportunity to get to speak to ladies behind some of these films. Thank you all for coming again. There's more. This is day 2 of RoxFilms. I have a list here of all the films that we're showing in each day and where they'll be, and there's some out front. Please sign up for the newsletter if you haven't. Learn more information, get involved, and without you, we couldn't be able to showcase the wonderful stories of these women and many others that are sharing their stories with us.